Hey, YouTube, we have a great interview today with ESPN and SEC Network's Cole Cubelic.
Yes.
Talking a lot of football.
So much football. Comment, share, make sure your voice is heard about what Cole got right or wrong, or if we got something wrong.
We
want you to tell us.
He talks about which fan bases he doesn't like,
Yeah.
which fan bases he does like, and a little bit about Hugh Freeze.
Hugh Freeze. A lot about Hugh Freeze.
Big time. So like, comment, subscribe. Football season's almost here. We hope you enjoy. Hi.
That's always weird.
I just want to do it like Brandon.
I know. No, I'm not saying you're weird. It's just
No, I'm weird.
You know what?
What?
Like, you guys, I don't know if you've realized it. Next Monday is our 300th episode.
The only reason I know that is because last time we recorded, it was just me and Noah in the studio, and he was like, we're coming up on 300. And, to me, that could be 20, 10, I don't know. And he was like, no, it was 297.
No, this is what people are listening to right now. It's 298.
And you remember last year how we were going to celebrate the 200th episode, and then nobody was here. Like Brandon's dad died.
It was
R.I.P.
like we couldn't even.
And then we ended up doing balloons for 203, I believe. That's the photo we ended up getting. Katie got those big balloons.
Yeah, but now
almost 300.
Are we going to get balloons for a Zoom?
I think we have to.
300's
a lot of episodes. They haven't canceled us yet, and in fact, we've been getting bigger and bigger.
300 episodes, and almost all 300 of them. Guess who's been with us?
High Noon.
High Noon.
Look at you, Jack. Yes. Okay, so High Noon is the drink of the summer. It's the drink of the football season. It's the drink of always. We're still talking about the pool pack because as much as I keep wishing away summer, which, Jack, I'm wishing it away because I want football season to start and I want it to start now, it still is summer. If you're in a lake, on a boat, in the ocean, in the pool, wherever you are, grab a pool pack. Wherever.
On a rooftop, and on a tailgate.
If you're on your couch.
We will not judge anywhere that, unless it's illegal, of course. We do not drink and drive,
and be 21.
And all responsible and legal places for you to drink a High Noon, we support.
We support it.
We will not give you. We will almost encourage it.
We will, yeah. Why not? So go get the pool pack. It is the lime, the guava, the kiwi, and the peach. It's only available this summer, so get it while you can. Of course, the tailgate pack will be coming back. We've got the big boys, the tall boys. We've got the peach and the pineapple.
Tequila.
We've got the tequila. And I will admit, I was not near as high on the tequila when they first came out. I liked it. I thought it was delicious. I was like, I am way more of a vodka fan. Still am. The tequilas, the strawberry. Pretty delicious, pretty refreshing, and the lime. I mean, it's just a margarita.
I will say you're not wrong. Yeah, a lot of the flavors grow on you. Like I remember black cherry at first. I was just like, it's just not it's probably my least favorite. But then you have a black cherry like a few months later. Then it's like, wait a second, I actually kind of like this. So even if you have the tequila, if you have a flavor and you're like, I like other ones better, go back to it once in a while.
Go back to it and keep going back to Drizzly. Keep going back to your local convenience store, your liquor store, highnoonspirits.com to find it near you. You know where they are. We love High Noon. And college football season is coming. The NFL is coming. And nothing is better than doing it with a High Noon. Today, Jack Mack, you and I holding it down in the studio. However, we have SEC Networks, ESPN, SiriusXM, all his jobs. We have Cole Cubelic on to talk about SEC Media Days.
Auburn offensive lineman.
Yeah, he's
defensive lineman.
Offensive lineman. Yeah, he is definitely a staple in college football, especially in the SEC. We have an interview with him, and when the interview was done, we all said it. Katie's also on. She's zooming in, so she was in the background, but she popped in and had this like shit-eating grin on her face because you and I both knew it as it was happening. That was like porn to her because he's so.
Get ready for some football talk.
A lot of football talk, a lot of in-depth stuff, some really good, funny stuff as well. But the X's and O's and the in-depth players. Katie loves that shit.
And yeah, we do too, but Katie especially. Cole knows a lot about a lot, and don't worry, it's not going to be like you're back in college or listening to a professor. He does make it very entertaining. We also throw some other things in there to talk about, and I learned a lot. We laughed, we cried. No, I'm just kidding. We did laugh. we did not cry, but we talk about SEC Media Days. We talk about expectations. We talk about the future of the SEC. We talk about the past. Cole gives us a great story, which I'm sure he's told before, about the time that his coach was fired 24 hours before the game.
And they found out from Paul Feinbaum.
Paul
I think
Feinbaum and a long snapper's. That actually, let's not.
Yeah, let's not even ruin it.
But I will say, one of my favorite stories I've ever heard on this podcast.
You looked at me and you were like, "That's the most SEC story I've ever heard."
It's truly. Just wait for it.
Yeah. So
when you hear it, you'll know it.
Yeah. No doubt. So Cole Cubelic is on a call with Tom Hart and Jordan Rogers on the SEC Network primetime game. You guys know him. You've seen him. But yeah, I mean, college football is coming, Jack. It's coming quick. We're less than 5 Saturdays away from week 0.
I mean,
it's crazy.
It's right. I mean, we're about to turn the month or the calendar to the month of August.
June
and once
July
August comes, it's here. No, it's here. Like, there's no more. Like, the players are getting ready to kiss their families goodbye for the next 4 months. Like, they ain't coming home.
No, 2 days are starting quick. And I did
I
a little.
think those are illegal now.
2 days?
Oh, 2 days.
Oh, I can't even say that.
Oh, you could say.
No, I know. But you can't. Well,
They don't exist anymore. Which actually makes sense. They're an insane concept.
Insane, and especially, and I know people, I mean, all over they're insane. The physical aspect of what people put through their bodies, but my God, in the South. I mean,
I know.
I was a water girl, Jack. I was a water girl. I was literally there to pass out water. I did nothing but pass out water, and I got dehydrated.
I mean,
in 2 days.
It's August. 2 days happen the most in August, even in. Did you see the TikTok or we posted on Instagram too of the black turf?
Yes.
And people were like, "Hey, idiots, upstate New York, do your research." And I was like, "Guys,
it looks cool."
First of all, I get that it's upstate New York. Second, it's just a video. Third, it's still hot as hell in it's hot as hell in August. And let's just say, I remember I did 2 days, but like I couldn't even imagine if they were in Texas.
Yeah, no. The black turf is one of those elements of TV that would be sick. I mean, I hate the blue turf. If you've listened to this podcast for a long time, I have major beef with the blue turf. I fucking hate it.
Black turf would look awful on TV.
It depends on the uniforms.
Green's perfect.
No, green is perfect. Well, and it's also very pleasing.
Better than green.
Green grass.
Green grass.
The greener the grass, the better.
It's like we don't have to. And I get it, Boise State. It's cool, but
fuck that. No, it's not cool.
I know it's not cool, but
I mean, people want their grass as green as possible because it's beautiful.
And there's different colors, like Iowa's grass looks different than Alabama's grass, and that's because of the sun and whatnot and how it hits the stadium. That's cool. We don't need to change it. There's some things we need to embrace.
Well, the agriculture group of Twitter, if we have any of those that are listening.
But yeah, I mean, open lands of grass is almost illegal now on Twitter. They're taking our golf courses from us next.
Oh no. I did go to a school where ag is popular, so maybe we've got some ags that are listening. The interview with Cole is awesome. We talk a lot about Hugh Freeze. I just straight up ask him, how can you accept the dude? So make sure you listen to that.
And he gave a very honest answer.
Yes, he did. So we'll get into that interview. But first, Jack, all those things we just mentioned also means college football is coming back on the Barstool Sportsbook. A lot of the futures are out right now.
I think like almost all of them win totals. You can get a win total on Akron. We gave out a win total last week. I gave out one. That was when you were in Texas for Toledo. I mean, like anything you want, they're there. And man, we're getting so close.
So close.
And I'm ready to get my heart broken by on a random Saturday night. I'm fine with that. Right now, I actually get my heart broken on a Saturday night by UFC judges all the time. But
it hits different when you also have to be on a podcast for work, too.
Yeah, and there's just like it's a little bit different. There's 15 UFC fights. There's 15 college football games at one time.
It's insane. And, of course, I'm not going to stop bringing this up. The fact that Brandon thinks he's only going to be betting 5 games after Saturday is the biggest farce in the history of farces.
But that's his responsible plan.
Responsible,
come into this season with a plan. That's what I love to do.
Yes.
And that's how you have a great season.
And you know what your plan is? Go download the app, sign up for the Barstool Sportsbook today. And if you haven't been betting with us, you can. There's going to be all the specials, all the promos. You can get behind Barstool right now if you download. If you've already downloaded, still go on, check it out.
And make sure you get some people, they take the summer off betting or whatnot, which is great. Make sure you download the new app. Looks amazing.
It does. It looks fantastic. A lot of the glitches have been fixed. Everything looks fantastic on the.
And there's a lot going on right now. We got the Women's World Cups happening, MLB every night.
I guess Clemmer has some good baseball bets.
Clemmer is dominating.
And naturally
we have
glimmer.
MMA, our UFC, NASCAR every weekend, and then before you know it, Football's here, and then it's just
Stunning.
September through
February.
June of just like there's we won't even have to tell you that there's things going on.
There are things going on in the Barstool Sportsbook. Terms to apply. You must be 21 or over. You must be 21 or over. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Let's get into the interview. All right, we have got Cole Cubelic of the SEC Network, ESPN. He's got a podcast. He does radio with Greg McElroy. Cole does it all.
He's on the sidelines at games. I mean, he's everywhere.
He's everywhere. And Cole, I've known you for a very long time. It's awesome that we're reconnecting here. We talk all the time as well. And we were talking about this off air, but Brandon is not here because, he's big timing us once again. He can't make time to be here. But he said that he met you at the same time I did, which was on the sidelines at Tennessee 2 years ago. And I had to remind him, like, no. Cole and I go way back. That's just the only time he's ever met you. So in his mind, that's the only time anybody's ever met you.
Of course. Yeah, no, it's on his terms, right? That anything that anything happens, it was his situation, not your situation. I'm actually disappointed he's not here because obviously I'd love to go toe to toe with some of the opinions. I will say this. I feel like it's really easy for, like, I heard Gabe Eicher come on not long ago, and all of a sudden it was like, oh, here we can just go at Brandon. I'm not gonna snag that low hanging fruit. I feel like it's too easy.
Okay.
I'm gonna go the other direction here. I can't remember if it was 2 weeks ago or like a week and a half ago. One of the all-time great takes that I didn't feel like got enough run when he said about the commits and the graphic and whatever, and it's like, respect my decision. He's like, bro, you didn't respect your own decision when you decided to decommit. Like, I'm an anti-graphic guy. So I feel like we have graphics for everything in college football. Like, it's your birthday, like, graphic guy. You passed the class, graphic guy. Here we go.
This is so good.
This is amazing. I've never heard that.
You won a game of Call of Duty, graphic guy.
I've never heard that statement ever in my life.
Anti-graphic
I'm anti-graphic guy.
I love this.
But sometimes I'll hear somebody say something and be like, that's awesome. What you just said is so, like, even though I'm for the graphics, but like when you see Hayes Fawcett pop up on your screen or on your Twitter, and he has a top 75 graphic for a class of 2028, like, and he's like, I can't wait to see where this guy goes. I can just imagine Cole just like throwing his phone across.
No, 100%. Judge Cubelic has narrowed his list to 28. Who should he pick? This guy every damn school, like, round and round. It's like a NASCAR car with like all the school logos on it.
They'll put like FCS. They'll put FCS schools on there. It's like, we know you're not going there. You're a 5-star.
You have to zoom in, like, where? Hold on, he's thinking about going where? I can't even see all the schools on
Jacksonville. Well, I guess Jacksonville State is more of a possibility now, but look at Central Connecticut. It's like, you're not going there.
I mean, Cole, I know you for many things, but anti-graphic guy might be at the top of my list
that. Too much. Casey, it's too much. Like, our academic scholars of the week. Like, what do you do to get that? You just like, do you show up at class? I mean, it's like they give grades per week. Academic student of the week, graphic.
They'll give nutritionists or like nutrition athlete of the week. It's like, wait, so did you make sure he didn't eat any like Oreos at night or anything?
He had the exact amount of grams of protein that he needed that week.
They looked at his macros and micros.
Yes, exactly.
Macro dominator of the week. Graphic guy. Here it is.
You know what? You should do that every game this year on the sidelines. You should just throw that in on one of your reports that this specific guy hit his macros of the week, and no one has to know but us. That it'll be our little inside joke.
The best one that is a little bit new, it really got going this offseason. I think it was like right after the season, the first recruiting cycle. Schools were putting out graphics of the states that certain coaches were recruiting.
Yeah.
So it was like, Auburn offensive line coach Cole Cubelic's in the great state of Florida. Graphic. Like, what? Why do we need? What are we doing? What's our advantage here? Like, we're making Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi mad because we're not there. Well, I give them credit. The creativity sometimes is great. Like the Bucky's thing that Auburn did. Like, those guys kind of did that on accident and ended up blowing up. And all of the response to it was amazing. That was fun. but the serious graphics it's overkill. It's way too much.
Yeah, it is. And I know the take that you're talking about with Brandon where it was during Hate Week.
We made a clip for that, but I didn't, just because how Twitter is. I decided not to post it.
Why?
Because it was just like
people get
because
mad.
it's a high school kid,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then people are like, oh, Brandon's attacking high schoolers now, and I was just like, I'd rather have Arkansas fans yell at him.
That's true. I guess it is like we also preach about like high school or kids that get like absolutely destroyed online when they do
Yeah.
decommit, and then we would be doing that. But I remember that take, and it is true because it has gotten ridiculous. But Cole, I'll be honest, when we found out Brandon was not coming in or coming on the show today, I was like, we've got to get somebody who was at SEC Media Days, and your name was at the top of our list because we've not had you on the show yet. You know, the other last time you and I were together was at the College World Series with Mincy. So I mean, you've really just run the gamut with Barstool, but SEC Media Days is a touchy subject here, and Katie is listening in. She's also not here today, but she's working. She is on the call, at least, unlike Brandon. But Katie wants to go to SEC Media Days so badly. And when I tell you that this is something that comes up regularly, she's like, guys, we've got to go. It was in Nashville this year, so she really wanted to go to Nashville. And I know you listen to the show off and on, which, thank you. Why? I don't know. You're a professional. You don't need to listen to us, but I appreciate it. Brandon and I have both been there. I was there 3 or 4 times. He was there as well. We're not fans of it. We're not fans of it at all. Katie wants to go so badly. Jack, you are.
You don't want to go. Every time Katie brings it up, because Katie is the most, it's ironic, but professional one of us four, I would say.
It is, no doubt.
No, and she's phenomenal, and she wants to plan it out.
Not saying much.
In January, which is, like, that's how things should work. She's phenomenal at that. But every time, and she'll bring it up because she wants the interviews and whatnot. And every time I'm like, thank God Brandon and Casey aren't going to follow up on this because I don't want to go. But I kind of feel privileged in that because it's like, people would kill to go to the SEC Media Days.
Definitely.
But I just know it's just a media, oh my God, it's just like the players and coaches by the end of the day, like, they don't want to see me.
Well, that's the difference. So, Cole, you obviously have the red carpet rolled out for you because you work for ESPN and the SEC Network, which is covering it. So you have a different opinion than we probably do, but we just don't like going. And they probably don't even let us in the building anymore anyways. But you do get the inside that we probably would not get.
Listen, I think if you guys wanted to set up there, you'd be fine. Whether you had your own room or Radio Row. Number one, I think most of the players are going to want to come sit down with you guys. So you're going to have a massive advantage there. Number two, I think it's pretty smart that a lot of these schools and coaches would understand what kind of run that they would get if they sat with you. Now, the being exhausted part, I don't care who you work for, what you do. Like it's just flat exhausting, the whole thing. It's 4 days. You're going, my show starts at 7. So obviously I'm up early. And then Casey, you know what it's like walking through Radio Row. It's like a literal death march. Can you record here? Can you come here? Can you do this? Can you come this afternoon? Can you do it right? This was the first time this year that I saw like analysts walking and guys with their phones recording while they're like can I just been watching just like a minute and a half just while you're walking to your next thing. I mean, it's that, and most of the coaches don't come to Radio Row anymore, and that's the reason why, is because you just get haggled nonstop. But that's part of what makes it great. The coverage of it is excellent. I think it's fun. It's like a giant media trade show, though. And so it's cool to catch up with everybody that you don't see or work at other networks, things like that. You do get some decent information. Like my podcast this last week was kind of like micro takeaways that I had that didn't make headlines, but I thought were things that were really cool for a lot of teams. So you can get good info. Like I do my show in the morning and I do SiriusXM in the afternoons, and like all the coaches and players come through there. So we get a good like 5-10 minutes with every one of them. So it's a plus, it's a positive. A lot of people would have liked it because it was like 2 blocks from Broadway this year. So everybody would get done and like go straight to Broadway. I got nothing for Broadway. I hate live music and I don't drink anymore. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah, I mean, I've never heard somebody say they hate live music before, but okay, so you I like live music.
I don't hate it. I'm more like, if I go into a bar and like I'm with somebody or there's a live band, I'm just like,
you want to have a conversation?
Yeah, can we leave?
What's the point?
Yeah.
But going to Broadway, that's what you're
yeah,
gonna
I
get.
get, yeah.
But Cole, I mean, as somebody who went to the Birmingham version, which is like there's like 2 restaurants within the entire like radius of the hotel, and like you talk about it was like a trade show too, and it was back then when I was working for TexAgs and then at the SEC network, but I still didn't know near as many people as I do now. It was overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
And I'm nobody. I mean, everybody. You obviously know all the former players and coaches and everything. I would assume at least in Nashville, even though it's much bigger and there's more to do, you kind of get a little bit more of like what I actually want to do. Because in Birmingham, it was like you had no choice. Everybody was in the same restaurant every single night. And it was just like, holy shit, I don't want to talk to all these people all day, every day anymore.
There's definitely different places, different directions to go. However, I think you got initiated into it in a way that would have you used to just about anything. Because remember, you were working for TexAgs and they were the new kid on the block. Mm-hmm. So nobody knew anything about A&M. Nobody had any contacts for A&M. Everybody needed to learn, wanted to learn. And then we're trying to, at least I was trying to set up people to talk to for my show down the road when Manziel started going crazy. Like, okay, who am I going to call and have on the show? Like, you got to have those contacts. I had them for the other schools. So there were a lot of people tugging at you guys when you were first coming because we didn't know a lot of people that covered Texas A&M. So I think you have a pretty good feel for kind of what it would be like now. I went out to eat 2 different nights, and there were 2 other sports entities covering media days that had like other group dinners at the same place. So even though it's everywhere, it's still Nashville's like a giant small town. It's like Birmingham is a little bit down from that, and media days just happen to be out in Hoover, which is like its own little place. But yeah, I could see where the frustrated. All you had to do was ask, and I could have pointed you in directions outside of Hoover of cool places to go, and they were like 10 minutes away.
I know.
It's not
and
hard.
Hoover, yeah. I mean, even the fact that I've even blocked out that it's in Hoover, not Birmingham. Like I'm like, yo, you fly into Birmingham, but what you just said about meeting us too back then is like wild to think about because I use that example all the time. People are like, how did you get into this industry? It was like it was the perfect storm that I was graduating at the same time the SEC network was launching, and Johnny was there, and of course, as you know, our listeners are always so kind to us, but people get sick of me bringing Johnny and A&M up. But my career actually is directly impacted by that because when I got my job at ESPN because of SEC Media Days. So as much crap as I like to talk about it, SEC Media Days really is kind of the starting point for me. And then the bigger picture, obviously, is of all media days, it is the biggest one. And whether it's an SEC bias or not, it is by far the biggest one from an attention standpoint, from a media standpoint. I said this. Yeah, I mean, just the entire thing.
4 days.
It's crazy how long it is, and we would have actually killed each other, by the way.
Oh, well, yeah.
We would kill each other if we were all there.
I, and Katie would have been fine, but then throwing Brandon into it would have made it. I think I, and Katie could go somewhere. We'd get annoyed, but we'd be fine.
We'd be fine. We'd have to have Cole come deal with Brandon because he won't listen to us. He's probably scared of Cole.
I feel like we're coming full circle here, though, because next year, Dallas. And I listened the other day, and you were talking about how your boyfriend's only been to Texas one time.
Oh, boy.
You don't get to Texas very much anymore.
It's true.
I'm just saying, next year, Dallas.
Well, first of all, we should listen to Katie more. Katie really rarely has any bad ideas. So, and this was one that we should have listened to her on. And Cole just sold us on. So yeah, I'm in for. I'm excited for Dallas next year. I'm in.
Katie's behind her screen right now, rolling her eyes, and she's like, "I've been saying this for years."
No,
and
Katie
Cole
was
Cubelic
right.
coming on.
Hashtag Katie was right.
There she is.
But I wanted to ask, and obviously we don't want the inside tidbits and whatnot, but is it, from the outsider's perspective, I would assume the best information you get, even though you may not be able to talk about it, is probably after the SEC Media Days. Is that correct or not? Is there dinners? Because I know a lot of the coaches and whatnot, they come in and then they fly out. Because, I mean, obviously they're in front of the private plane. Then they fly in, They show off their shoes.
There's a graphic for it.
There's a graphic for their shoes. For it, for sure. And then they fly out. But I would assume, I know how this place works. It's like the best information you get is if you go out and have some drinks with people. I know you don't drink, but even if it's over whatever, barbecue, steak.
No, it could be. But this also applies to, let's say, like when I'm covering a game. Like we have our TV production meetings on Friday. you get really good information. So I talk to people who cover the teams throughout the course of the week. I might get one or two things here. Then we sit down with coaches. We have the same coaches all year, so we have great relationships with those guys. They trust us. So we get some good stuff. Players will get good stuff. And then maybe the head coach is like, all right, one last thing. Don't let it out before kick, but this. Then fast forward, and Casey can speak to this when she did it. You get on the field. We show up about 2.5 hours before the game. I tell people about 45 minutes before kick is when I get my absolute best information of the week, because that's when the offensive coordinator, the running back coach, the head coach, like they come around, they're like, all right, seriously, so here we go. Like so-and-so, he ain't playing.
He ain't playing.
And you probably need to know, like, first play is going to be reverse pass. And if we ever see 2 tight ends on the field, like, we're going to blitz our ass off. And I'm like, here we go. Like, now it kind of makes me feel like an idiot because I did all this other stuff through the week. And I'm like, that's what I've been waiting to hear. Like, right there, that's what I really need to know. So, like, I'll give you a good example. Last year with Will Levis in Kentucky, like, we had him against Mississippi State. They thought he was going to play. He wanted to try to play. Will sits down there with us. He's like, listen, I want to play. I'm going to do whatever I can to play. He goes out. Stoops comes in, and Stoops is like, I don't see any way we're going to let him play. Like, he's like, I don't want to do that to the kid. Like, I don't want to put him in harm's way. I don't see how he's going to be close to 100%. He's like, but we are going to let him walk out there. We're going to see how it feels. We're going to give it a go, and then we'll decide in warm-ups. And he ended up coming out in the boot, and he wasn't even going to try. But just kind of everybody was wondering. It was looking like he might play. He tells us he wants to play, and then Stoops is like, nah, God, like, I'm not doing that to my quarterback, man. Like, there's no way. So it's the information gets a little better as the week goes on, but about 45 minutes before kick is the best. Media days is kind of all over the place. So I'll be in the corner, bump into somebody who covers college football for another entity. You hear this? Oh yeah, I heard that. And he's like, oh, well, you want to check on this. I mean, I got a couple texts on certain days, like, ask this coach about this. I'm like, I'm not going to ask the coach that, but I know some other people that are here that I'll ask and see, and it ended up being real. And I'm kind of glad I didn't ask the head coach about it. But like, I'll give you a couple examples. So, like, these are really small. I wanted to sit down with Will Rogers, because you guys know they're making this transition to Kevin Barbay's offense. It's going to be a 180. It's totally different. I asked Will when the last time he took a snap under center was. And he said he did it one time in high school. And he said maybe Pee Wee League after that, which, by the way, the one, because he ran air raid in high school.
Yeah.
The one snap he took under center was on the one coming out of his own end zone. And I was just kind of like, hold on a second. That's the one place I wouldn't want to do something totally different, is down on your own one. But that was it. And I said, all right. I said, cool. I said, when was the last time you turned your back to a defense? And I shit you not, he kind of sat back in his chair and he started smiling. He was like, I think you got me on that one, Cole. He said, never.
Oh my God.
So, like, when you think about long play action and he goes to hand the ball off and you turn your back to the defense, turn around, that picture's different. He's never done it. So, like, I've never heard anybody ask him that or him talk about that. Another one was Mark Stoops when we were talking about quarterback situations. And I said, Coach, I don't feel like anybody who covers this league or knows this league really understands how good your quarterback is. Like, SEC fans just don't. It's like how we got Butt Bama started. Like, it's kind of an SEC thing now. It's really more of a Georgia thing now. Like, you talk about a guy from another conference or another school, but you seen our guy at that position. I mean, it's like I could, I can't say Caleb Williams is good. It's like, but you seen Jalen Milroe run?
It's so true.
It doesn't matter. Like, it's just, that's what it is. So they don't know that Devin Leary is a person. Like, they think he's this mythical object that just isn't good. He can't be good because he's not in the SEC. And Stoops was like, you know what, Cole? He's like, we're really pleased where we are with our quarterback this year as opposed to last year. If you stopped it there, it sounds bad. He followed it up. He said, remember last year, all the hype was there are a couple of people had him as the number one pick. I remember. I don't know if it was PFF or whoever. Can Kentucky win 10? Can they push for the division? Then he starts getting these NIL deals, like the racehorsing thing and the root beer deal. All of that raises profile. So, like, the hype around Levis this time last year was out of control. And nobody's talking about Devin Leary. So I thought it was cool to hear Stoops say, we feel really good about kind of nobody talking about our quarterback. And yeah, by the way, we know he's really good. So kind of just little things like that, I thought, were pretty cool. Like we talked to Cedric Van Pran, and he talked about the center for Georgia, how he's gone back and watched film and he's working on his footwork and his hat placement, his hand placement. This dude's a 3-year starter. And I'm just like, why? And he's just like, that's a part of my game that can improve. And then he told us, the verbiage will not change on offense. It's going to be exactly the same. So those are the little things you can kind of pick up. It's not these earth-shattering, something that's going to be totally different. But I love taking those little things and then kind of starting conversations. Like, I'll give you another one. we were talking to Coach Freeze, and we were just talking about play calling. And he's like, listen, because he's not going to do it. He's like, I knew it was too much to handle that. I didn't want to do it. Somebody else can handle it. And he said, listen, when I was calling plays, there were times that the run game wasn't going, and I'd get on the headset and tell Matt Luke, hey man, like you need to take it. I can't, something's not right. Or he'd talk to Ken Austin and say, Kent, I'm cold, call the next 2 series, whatever it is. So the back and forth was fine. And he was like, it was no big deal. Oh God.
Josh Pate.
God.
Oh boy, I was gonna ask you about him. I was gonna Josh
God.
Pate, Brandon Walker.
This is just like we should have Josh on and just have like Brandon. Brandon would get so jealous.
How perfect.
The roast of Brandon. So again, this is one of those things where all of our listeners that are downloading what's happening. He just held up his phone and showed us that Josh Pate is calling as we speak. I mean, we might as well just host the Brandon Walker roast hour at this point.
I know, and it'd be like it's kind of like you're making your like boyfriend or like a guy that you want to see or a girl you want to see a little jealous.
That's exactly what just happened.
Yeah.
Yes, I the picture of you two at Media Days I saw on Twitter, and I was like, oh, I've got to ask him about this because the Brandon Josh back and forth has become phenomenal. I mean, it's just
we can get into it. That was just too good. I had to.
That's fantastic.
That was awesome.
I listen to the show, so I know everything going on. Josh is my guy. But I mean, Casey, you know, whether it's real, not real, fake, people making it up, that was the narrative after Monday. Mm-hmm. Like, and the thing that frustrates me about it, I played for Jimbo. He's my offensive coordinator at Auburn. Like, Jimbo's a friend of mine. He's great. I love him. But that thing could have been put to bed. And it wasn't early, nobody's fault, but the media was like, they were waiting. They were ready to pounce on any little opening that had to do with Petrino play calling, whatever. And I asked Freeze, I was like, Coach, you realize how different that is than what everybody here has wanted to create this week? And he's just like, it's different places, but we've always had this ability to hand it off to the other guy or the next guy, knowing that he's like, if Philip comes to me this year and is like, Hugh, I need you to call a series. Like, something's not going right. I need to get my thoughts together. He's like, I'll call it for a series and then I'll hand it back. And like, that'll be that. Now, listen, the school that I attended, Malzahn and Rhett Lashley or Malzahn Chip Lindsey, like we dealt with that for years. Mm-hmm. And Auburn fans were out of their minds. Like, what is happening? Who's calling it back and forth, this, that. So Auburn fans know good and well about the frustration that can come with it. But I just thought I'd never heard him say anything like that. So those are the kind of things I try to take away from Media Days and just like generate other conversations off that.
Well, and you're in such a great place too, in a good position to have these conversations because you did play football and you are like, you're not just, on the sidelines as sideline reporter, not to take anything away from that because obviously that's an important job as well. But as a sideline analyst, guys know they can sit down and go through every single, X's and O's, every single play call, every single defensive scheme, like everything with you. And then also know that you understand where they're coming from. So I think that from that standpoint at SEC Media Days, you're able to take away those little tidbits that maybe somebody who's not played the game or isn't as versed in the game as you are would be able to. And, again, as much shit as we talk on just like the length of Media Days and how long they are, the ability to get those little tidbits in July. And this is my thing, and I know a lot of people feel this way, the start of college football season really feels like once SEC Media Day starts, and again, it is the biggest one, whether you like it, the SEC or not, after it, it's really just kind of the downhill speed into the season. And now you have things to look forward to. And one of the things I always laughed about when I was there was, like Derek Mason, for example, he always won SEC Media Days to me. He always had the best things to say and the hype. You do get those things. I guess my question with that is, from your standpoint, knowing as much as you do and being there and having those conversations, was there somebody coming out of this year's SEC Media Days that really stood out to you that maybe you didn't expect going in? Because head coaches are head coaches, but was there somebody that you were like, wow, they won SEC Media Days this year?
Yeah, well, okay, generally it would be Hugh Freeze would be one, which I was really surprised that most of the general media was as surprised about how he handled things. Like, Hugh has always been able to work a room, always.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he knows how to get in there and talk and make you feel good about things. Like, and I don't think he went out of his way to hype his team or anything like that, because he's kind of trying to downplay expectations right now, because what they've done in the portal, I think, is the portal is just like it's a piss your pants cornucopia right now. Like, anybody sees anybody in the portal and they think he's the greatest player alive. I'm like, the kid doesn't have a start. Like, what are we talking about? So, but I think he just, the general media thought he did a great job. And then I thought Zach Arnett I thought he kind of won media days also. Now, part of that is Zach Arnett's a pretty intense dude. Like, I've had people who've done TV meetings with him for one game. I've done a couple with him. And I know exactly what they saw, but they didn't get past it. And they're like, you do a meeting with Arnett? I was like, yeah. And they're like, holy hell, that guy's an ass. And I'm like, what? And they're like nothing. He's like mean. He's like pissed the whole time. And I was just like, you got to get a little further down the road. Like, he's fine. He's great. Like, I love talking to him on the field before the game. Like, he's fantastic. And I just don't think anybody had seen any real personality from him. They didn't know him. And they see this like rough exterior and they think that's what they're going to get. And then he's just like talking about guitars and, talking about, his coaching acumen and Mike Leach and, what he learned. And so I think he was one of the big winners. For me, it was a couple players. I mentioned Cedric Van Pran from Georgia, just an unbelievable kid. Like, it took I'll tell you this, it took my concern for the Georgia quarterback situation and almost removed it. Really? I'm like, if they have that kid in front of them, they're going to be fine. Just what he said about himself, his team, the fact that they're not going to change any terminology, the fact that I think he's the best center in college football coming back. Like, and then he's down to 305. He cut a little bit of weight. He's gotten leaner. I was just blown away with him. Elijah McAllister, edge defender at Auburn. And I told Jacob Hester, we were doing SiriusXM, I said, now listen, this is not basketball media day, so just get ready. And he kind of laughed, and the kid walks in, and Jacob's like, you are not, like, he was like a power forward. He told us his wingspan is 7 feet.
Oh my God.
And you just start hearing him talking about, like, he didn't meet Hugh Freeze until the recruiting process out of the portal, and Hugh brings him to media day. So I think he's like on the leadership committee already. The other two kids said he's one of the best leaders on the football team. He was just somebody that stood out and wowed me. And then probably Jacob Warren, tight end at Tennessee, who told us that he does not want to start a business one day. He wants to open a strip mall with multiple businesses and own all the businesses in the strip mall, and already has this plan in place.
Nice.
He already knows what all the businesses are. He knows which ones he wants next to one another. And that's what he wants to do after he keeps playing football. Because Jacob, like with both those guys, Jacob's like, those dudes are going to take our job. I said, Jacob, those guys are going to be so far above our pay grade, man. Like, they ain't worried about talking about college football when they get out of here. They're going to be doing much more important things. So, and that's like, it's a weird deal. Like, I use Quinn Ewers as an example of this. We had the bowl game last year. And I mean, I'll be real. I've never met him. I didn't know what to expect, but I see this kid. Now, this is a football player's brain, all right? I'm not saying this is logical brain. This is football play. This is like meathead football player brain. He quits high school football, because that's what I call it. Okay, he quit, and then he goes there because he's got all this money on the line. He goes to Ohio State. He's driving this monster truck that he got from one of his NIL deals. Doesn't start right away, which, I mean, look who was there. You had to imagine that wasn't going to take place. Comes back to Texas. He's got the mullet. He's got the beard. Like, he's got all the NIL stuff. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to sit down with this kid. Like, this is going to be fascinating. We sit down with him. He is like literally soft-spoken, almost shy. He comes across, deflects all the attention to his teammates. Every question we ask about him, well, my offensive line really this, or my receivers do a great job of this, or, if it wasn't for Coach Sark and how he calls plays, and if it wasn't for this guy, like, everything deflected to his teammates. He took no responsibility for any success. And we walk out of there, and I was like, what was that? And Jordan Tom said the same thing. Just, I don't know if that's all the time, but that's not what we expected. We generate, like, we feel like we know these players because we love it so much, and we love watching them, and they make us so happy, or they break our hearts, whatever it is. We feel like we know them, and it's just, we don't know any of these kids. We don't know anything about them. And so when I get a chance to, like, actually sit down and talk to them, that's why maybe it's easier for them to blow me away, but these dudes were over the top impressive that I talked to at media days. Those guys stood out more than any. Like, Dallas Turner at Alabama was the same way. Like, he was going on about leadership. Like, he was talking about how, like, sunglasses, he told his guys, like, that ain't us. We ain't doing that. Like, no, that's not who we are. Don't need it. Talk about football. We're here to talk about how we're going to win games this year. Like, and it's just, I guess at Alabama, we probably should expect them to be, like, robotical in how they're wired. But just impressive to hear him talk about how things have changed and how his leadership roles changed. Just those are some of the kids that I took away that I thought won media days, but not for everybody, Casey, because not everybody really had that chance to talk to them, I guess.
Let's take a quick break from the interview, Jack, to talk about something that is very important, and that is mental health. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. And Jack, we know mental health, pretty big part of daily life, pretty big part of our lives as well here on Unnecessary Roughness.
Yes. And when the mental health is right, you feel better, you feel good. I'm more excited for the podcast. I mean, that's just basic mental health stuff. But and I've had times in my life too, and there'll be times in the future as well, when the mental health feels a little bit off and you're just like, ugh, and you're dragging. But that's okay.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah. And guess what? We have someone here that can help in those times that help give you a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, BetterHelp is awesome because it takes what conventional therapy does best and makes it a lot more accessible to a lot more people. Because, a lot of people say, oh, I don't have time to go sit into a therapist's office, or especially after the pandemic, you might not want to go find somebody new. You don't have the time. BetterHelp takes care of it because it's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. And it's really great because you don't have to talk to someone face to face. You can if you want, but you can chat. You can do phone call. You can do video calls. And it just helps you stay connected truly when you feel better, when your mental health feels better, whether you struggle with mental health issues or not, even if you're just dealing with your stressors of life, if you can navigate those things better, your life is just better. I mean, even if you need to just talk to somebody about a situation with
you don't
work.
Even have to be the idea that to go to therapy, you have to have massive mental health issues is wrong.
It's wrong.
Sometimes even like a 5%, 10% boost, maybe you even go and talk to this BetterHelp person once or twice a month. But if you want it, you can change how many sessions you want a month, a week, whatever. And also, whenever I think about getting a new doctor, it's so awkward. You go into the room and then it's like, what if I don't like him or her? With BetterHelp, you can just, if it's not going well, you can just X out and go about your life. And guess what? That's not the end of it. Your journey with BetterHelp, you'll just find another person.
Yeah, they have a great way to match you with therapists. You just fill out like a brief questionnaire and you get matched. They're all licensed therapists. So it's not just some random person in Michigan that you're talking to.
Yeah.
It is a licensed therapist. And then if for some reason...
Ricochet shot at Michigan.
That was just the first thing that came to my mind,
It was one of the last things that Cole said.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
It was on my brain. So if you don't match with them, you don't like them for whatever reason, they will switch therapists at any time for you at no additional charge. So BetterHelp is a situation where you get better help. That's what it's called. And the path isn't always clear, but if you're listening to this right now, and even if it's something completely minor in your life all the way to the biggest, most major things ever, BetterHelp can help you find more balance with BetterHelp. If you visit betterhelp.com/Smith today, you will get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Smith. And also, it's cheaper than regular therapy already. So you're getting 10% off.
No, that's amazing.
It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah, and definitely encourage it, and thank you to BetterHelp for helping.
I'm going to be honest, the Quinn Ewers story, it kind of burst a little bubble because I thought the same thing. It's like this guy would star in a Friday Night Lights, he would be like a Riggins type guy.
Do you go into those, or have you been in a lot of those meetings where players don't obviously say who they are, will really just disappoint you? You'll kind of come out of it and be like, oh, that guy's a fucking asshole.
Well, you can say it if you want.
If
you'd like to tell us who it is, I won't stop you.
I mean, and then also, I would assume that's true because, I've been around college football players, but is there a specific position group that is more so that? I'm sure the offensive linemen, defensive linemen are a little bit more, they're the good guys, the guys that are you would want to have a beer with them. But are the stereotypes true of more guys on skill positions and whatnot?
Well, I'll just say this: the DBs actually won the week as far as bling was concerned. If you want to go that direction, Kool-Aid McKinstry's bling was off the charts. There are a couple other DBs that just had massive. I can't remember who it was. Had his logo on there, and you're just like, damn. Not the asshole part. No kid ever comes into a meeting and we just can't stand them. Now, okay. I think what it is, keep in mind, we're talking about 19, 20, 21-year-olds. We've got a lot going on. So some are standoffish. Some get very defensive very quickly. So if there's a kid that's not playing well or something happened and he thinks it's going to come up, that defense mechanism's up right away. And so that can come off in obviously a multitude of ways. And then some guys aren't very talkative. So I think it would be more disappointed in that we didn't get anything out of them than how they treated us or how they acted. Like very rarely do we walk out of a meeting and say, I hope I never run into that kid again. It's not like that. It's just I was hoping to learn about the offense, the defense, or the coaching staff or the teammates, and he just didn't really want to talk about anything.
So when we look towards this season and, a lot of different questions, with the SEC and just the future of the SEC. I mean, you bring up Texas. Like, we obviously have to talk about Texas and OU next year, but a lot of headlines, the SEC media days, from a big standpoint, like you mentioned, the ones that everybody's talking about, it's, can Georgia three-peat? What's going to happen with Alabama? And, your guy Paul Feinbaum going viral because he's saying, that Nick Saban's legacy could be gone. What's going to happen in the West? There's so many different places we can go. I guess you can just take it. What really stood out to you is some of the biggest storylines that are being talked about, but that maybe made a little bit of headway in Nashville last week? Did we make any progress with any of those?
I don't know, because I was kind of, like I said, I'm not worried about the Jimbo Petrino thing because, first and foremost, like, those two guys both have enough FU in them to where if one doesn't allow the other to do what they want, they're just going to walk away. I think that's the most entertaining part of that is people are like, well, Jimbo's not going to let it. Jimbo's going to pull it away. I'm like, and Bobby will walk out of there. Like, it's, I don't think they understand his personality. I do think having Jim Chaney in there is going to be great for Texas A&M. Like, he is this. It's almost like having your two uncles that hate each other, but then Santa Claus is in the room with them at Christmas time, so they can't be mean to each other because there's this jolly man who's so much fun and so cool and like so great to be around that he'll just lighten the mood. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think people want it to be a problem because it's easy to write about, and they probably have a lot of those stories already written. I do think the Georgia stuff is interesting. Like, we've reached the Bama portion with Georgia. Like, if I were to say anything somewhat critical about this Georgia team, there's a certain Georgia website that's going to clip that, and they're not going to mention the name of unnecessary roughness, by the way, when they use it. And they're going to say, look what this guy that you may or may not know who he is, who might call games, who may have played in the SEC somewhere, I really don't know. And what he's telling you is how he thinks Georgia sucks. Like, that's how it goes. So I don't think Georgia's D-line is going to be near as good as they've been the last 2 years. But that's the Georgia standard. We're not talking about Vanderbilt or Arkansas or Mississippi State. We're talking about Georgia. It's not going to be close to what it's been. But Michael Williams is going to be pretty damn good. Like, the linebackers, they might not be what they've been, but like Dumas Johnson's legit. He's a big-time player. They might have the best safety in the league, so the defense will still be really good. I think the offensive line is going to be good. I'm interested to see the offense because they had great players last year, Casey, but towards the end of the year, what made them so difficult was to defend. They ran everything, all of it, every run, every screen, every protection. Then they had a quarterback who could ad lib. And you had these. I remember I had their spring game 2 years ago before they won their first title. And I came away from the spring game saying they physically are things at certain positions that no one that they are going to play this year, conference, non-conference, playoff, championship game, whatever, are going to be able to deal with. Offensive line, defensive tackle. I mean, this is when Adam Anderson was on the team. He was 6'5", 240 playing star. That's a safety for the people at home who don't know. Like, that's stupid. So Darnell Washington, 6'7". So I'm asking Kirby about Darnell Washington because everybody's like, well, he's a 260. I was like, Kirby, I like how the young tight end got in there last year, worked it. I was like, he's big kid. He's like, Cole, he's 285. I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me?
285?
285. Like, I had the Missouri game and Stacey Searles was like, look at him. He was walking by in warm-up. He said, I could make him the richest left tackle to ever play football if he'd give me 6 months. And he probably could, but the dude could also catch and run. So Georgia's going to be a handful. Those weapons, like the receiver, adding Dominic Lovett is massive. Like, him and Ladd McConkey working the slots and being able to move around. And then you get Ra Thomas on the outside. I don't think there's a comp to Brock Bowers. Like, I don't know why we're not talking about him as the best football player in America, not the best tight end. I just don't know if there's anything like him. Guys, he got legit reps at running back in the spring. He played running back in high school. I asked him last year what he played in high school. He told me running back. So I was joking with Kirby like a month ago at a golf tournament in Birmingham. And I said, you gonna get Brock some reps at running back? Because I knew he played it in high school. And Kirby says, well, we were down a couple backs in the spring, so we let him carry it a little bit in the spring. And I'm just like, forget it. Like, this dude, what like, put him at outside linebacker. Like, what are we doing? I mean,
he doesn't get enough credit for the physical positioning he put himself in. I think it was a 4th down play against Ohio State, or maybe it was 3rd down, where he caught it on the sideline and he was falling out of bounds. And now, the physical force of him, what, he's 6'6", 260, 6'7", 2. He was falling out of bounds, somehow stopped himself from falling out of bounds and reached across to get the first down. I remember that play is like, I mean, obviously we know he's a physical specimen, but that was the play of the year for me. And I think if they didn't get that first down, it really would have affected their comeback against Ohio State, which people just forget about now because obviously, I mean, 65-7 is something we've never seen before. But how much are you buying the hype on Beck? And do you see him as a quarterback? Because there's a guy who I really like, and obviously you do a lot with Jordan, but I really like Aaron Murray. I think he's like a budding star in the college football media space. Obviously, people know him and whatnot. In that video, did you see the video of him with somebody was asking him, I think it was a Georgia bar or something, and he was...
his jersey on? That was great.
Yeah, and then Aaron was like, that's my jersey.
Yes,
which is
so
funny.
So good.
But Aaron talks about him like he is the future of college football as we know it, like Matthew Stafford. But he's coming in after, back to back. We kind of forget it because you say the but Bama thing's now the but Georgia thing, but like Georgia, and I know we're in the North and not the South and whatnot, we more cover nationally, but Georgia didn't win a national championship and as you know, 42 years?
A long time.
And now it's just, they're the wrecking ball. But before Stetson Bennett, they were almost like the butt end of the joke. And now he's coming in, replacing the guy that did it. The expectations are so high. And he has the talent. He stuck around. He could have transferred. But I just want, like, your thoughts on him overall.
I mean, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really care. I mean, it's because the part of the problem before was I think Kirby was going like straight quarterback collector, and he was just grabbing as many 5-stars out of high school and the portal as he could. And then it ended up working out that this walk-on, who was, by the way, the MVP of 4 playoff games. I'm not sure that'll ever be done again.
Yeah, insane.
Even though we're expanding, I'm still not sure that'll ever be done again. So I think he and the people around him have sort of realized, like, we don't need Justin Fields to like do everything guy and go out and win football games. Our defense is going to be really good or dominant. And now with what they've put around him, I find it almost difficult he's going to fail. They're not typical Georgia at tailback, and they have a freshman coming in they think might be, but the O-line is going to be great. The tight end and the tight end depth is going to be great. They have every style receiver you want, big, long, physical, track guy that can run past you, guy who run routes intermediately. Like they have them all. So I think he'll have, and we kind of forget too, I forgot about this. I had Georgia at Kentucky the COVID year. And so 20, and like I was the only one that traveled. The rest of the crew didn't travel. And I was looking through pictures the other day trying to find something, and I had a picture like from behind they're warming up, and there's Carson Beck standing there.
He's been there for a minute.
He's been around for a while. So McElroy loves him too, and those guys know more about quarterback play than I ever will. So I'll trust what they say about it. I don't really care anymore because I think the O-line is going to be dominant. I think the weapons are going to be elite, and the defense is still going to be really good. My only question with Georgia is how much Georgia are they going to be compared to the last 2 years, honestly. And I am a little intrigued with the offense. Like, can it be as diverse as it was towards the end of last year? It won't be, because if it's Beck, he doesn't have the same kind of mobility, the same kind of maneuverability that Stetson Bennett had. But there are other ways in which he can offset that. So they're not going to be tested too many times on that schedule. That's not their fault entirely. People get mad about it, but they're just really good. Like, if you put Missouri with that schedule, you'd say, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, they were supposed to have Oklahoma, and that changed because of the realignment. But this is a topic that everybody's talking about. We've talked about it, ridiculous amount of times on this podcast. But the SEC East this year. I mean, we know Georgia. We know that, Tennessee with Hendon Hooker last year, phenomenal. We'll see what Joe Milton's able to do. But for the first time in a really long time, at least, for a lot of us, it's that the biggest question marks are in the SEC West, which is crazy because you have Nick Saban and you have Alabama. But, we talked about this. I mean, even last week, it's like if you sat me down right now and said, who is the best team at the end of this season on the SEC West and the worst team in the SEC West, I wouldn't be able to give you a definitive answer. I want to say Alabama. I want to be able to say, but then you've got all these different things. Yeah. Where do you power rank these teams, Cole? I mean, you see them every single week, and it's just insane to me that we do not know those answers the way that we have in the past.
I would, and by the way, I think the more difficult part of your question would be who finishes last, without a doubt. I would have LSU. I got LSU barely ahead of Alabama. Part of that is what they have returning at quarterback. I think when you go frontline 22, LSU is there or ahead of Alabama in almost every position. They'll have the best defensive player on the field the majority of the time they play. Might have the best tandem of defensive tackles with Mason Smith coming back next to Wingo. They're going to have maybe the best tandem of offensive tackles as well with Avery and Will Campbell coming back. They have tight ends are going to return. It's going to be really good. I mean, they're going to be solid across the board. That offensive line brings back 6 different guys who have started. And those were all things they had to figure out throughout the course of last year. Now they know it. After Ohio State, you could throw in Georgia, LSU, maybe another team or two, and I put LSU's receivers up against any of them. I mean, Malik Neighbors and Lacey, these guys are freaking robots catching the football. They're like cyborgs. So I think they're going to be a matchup problem for just about everybody. Depth is a little concerning. Secondary, a little bit concerning. But, I mean, if you got a couple guys in the middle and off the edge you can get to the quarterback, you can offset that. Matt House, a really good defensive coordinator. I do think Bama's depth is a little bit better based on recruiting, but I don't live in that world. Like I keep an eye on recruiting, but I don't know it. But I think it's fair to say based on the multitude of classes loaded with 4 and 5 stars they've had, their depth is probably a little more talented. But Bama's got some legit questions, but I don't lack confidence in what they're going to be or what they're going to do this year. They got the best guard in the league in Tyler Booker. I think they're super deep at wide receiver. They don't have the A++ guy that we know about right now, but they're deep. They're 5 or 6 deep of guys who are really good, really talented. Tight end room is deep. Amari Niblack's a kid to watch out for there. I think he breaks out, has a really good year. You got Robbie, who's kind of like your dirty work guy. Running back again, they have like 5 guys who can all play, and they love the incoming freshmen. So they'll be able to pick their poison there and decide who they want to go with. J.C. Latham's back at tackle. It's going to be good. They got Dalcourt McGoughlin playing in the middle, 2 former centers that are going to start. So from a brain power standpoint, that helps you out. I think Caden Proctor, the freshman, plays at left tackle at some point this year. And then defensively, I mean, you've got the best edge rusher, if Harold Perkins is not rushing off the edge, in the league in Dallas Turner, the best corner in Kool-Aid McKinstry. So, I mean, right now, if you're asking me to pick an interior defensive lineman, I'm taking Jaheim Otis. Mason Smith might be there, but he hasn't played as many snaps. So, I mean, that's 3 positions on defense. They're the best in the league. And I think Kevin Steele will be a little less aggressive. The terminology is going to be close and the same he's coached it before, but like Pete is super aggressive. I think Kevin knows when to pick his times a little bit more so than Pete does. And I think that'll help that defense. But what I like about him the most is, like, they say they're going to get back to bully ball. And the best way to do that, the one thing you have to do that is have dedicated runs. The problem has been they've been so quarterback-centric the last few years. The quarterback's made the decision on every play. Are we going to hand it off? Am I going to keep it? Am I going to throw it? And the offensive line gets tired of that shit, man. Like, it's like you're winning blocks and then here comes a slant. You're winning blocks. Like, here comes another throw. They're not going to do that. Like, Tommy Reese is going to call duo, and they're going to run duo. He's going to call inside zone. They're going to run inside zone. So I think they have a chance to get that mentality back. You can talk about it all you want. You still have to go do it. Mm-hmm. But they could be very different on offense this year for a lot of positive reasons. LSU barely, then Alabama. Those 2 are really close. A&M would be next because their roster is as close to those 2 as anybody else in the West. But all of the teams from there down, and this kind of includes A&M, like, I have real questions about and real concerns, but also have things I really like about every one of those teams. It's a literal coin flip after that. Like, the transition that State is making, it's hard for me to think that they're going to be really good this year with a first-year head coach. Guys, Malzahn has gone out and gotten the best quarterback on the roster, the 2 best receivers on the roster, the 2 best tackles on the roster, the best center on the roster, the best nose guard on the roster, and the 2 best off-the-ball linebackers on the roster. Like, and the best tight end. They're a different team. But when you have that different, it's hard. I'm not going to sit here and say you're going to win 8 or 9 games. Not in that league, not against those teams. I love Arkansas's quarterback and running back. And I think they're going to have a really good center. I don't know about the weapons, how it's going to be. They're going to a 4-down defense, and Travis will do a good job. They'll probably give up fewer big plays. But, I mean, are they deep enough week in, week out? I think Ole Miss is going to be super dangerous. Like, yeah, Pete's aggressive, but Pete's structure will make them 20% better against the run, just how they line up. Like that 3-3-5 stuff, man, that doesn't work in the SEC. Like you are going to get gutted if you try to run it. And for some reason, Lane was obsessed with it and wanted to run it. He made his guys go study at names, and it didn't work out. Like they got Joshua Harris from NC State, big boy D tackle. The D tackle they got from Nebraska can play. And they still have a kid, J.J. Pegues, who's super athletic, still learning to play D-lines. They have 3 interior SEC prototypical D linemen. They haven't had that in a while. And Pete's structure will make them better. Got the best pass rusher out of the portal in Oku, the kid out of James Madison. Now, the defense I don't think is going to be like top 30 in the nation, but they'll be better. And then you got the best running back in college football, in my opinion. You go and get Zachary Franklin from UTSA. The receiver they got from La Tech can get it too. I think he's going to have a good year. So it's all this new stuff, but Lane's done it before. I think he likes it that way. He's used to working that way. So I think Connor Wegman's really good. I think A&M's offensive line has a chance to be great. Some of those kids have really good film, but the same kids have some really bad film. So I don't know what we get this year. Receivers are incredible. The defensive line can absolutely rip. I don't love the second and third level of the defense. I don't think the play calling thing is going to be an issue. But, and this is not an accusation, if there's a culture problem, it will show up. And they will not excel if that's real. And I'm not saying it is. I don't know. I'm not there. And I think most people even there wouldn't be able to tell you if there is. But if there is, they ain't getting close to winning the West. They're just not. And there probably isn't. But the point being, when things start happening like they did last year, it's a little bit of a fair question. So right. I have massive concerns for almost all of them, but I have things that I love about almost all of them. I think the middle of the West is the most intriguing part of college football this year. I really do, because like you said, Casey, coin flip. Like I have no idea who's going to win 7, if somebody's going to win 4, who's going to win 10. Like it could go so many different ways.
And with your team, with Auburn, a lot of question marks as well, because you've got a new head coach. And if Brandon was here, I would just like to point out, Brandon would be much meaner about this topic than we would be. But, what are your expectations with Auburn this year? Because, with all the rumors last year with, is Lane going to be there? Is he not going to be there? Then you guys go out and you get Hugh Freeze. We don't have to go through the history of Hugh Freeze. Everybody that's listening knows that and knows, what he's known for and the jokes and all of that. But at the end of the day, he's a really good football coach. And he has his issues that he had at Ole Miss. But your expectations as an Auburn guy and what the fan base expects from him, knowing what we know about Hugh Freeze, how fair is all of this? Like, what are the expectations here?
I don't think he takes that job if he doesn't want the expectations. Like, he welcomes coaching against Nick Saban. Like, people are always like, why would you go to Auburn? You got to coach against Kirby and Nick every year. Like, he wants that. And I don't think that's fake. I don't think it's window dressing. I think he told us, here's another one of those little things. He said when he was finding his offensive coordinator, he wanted somebody that ran the same offense but used different terminology. And he said, these D coordinators in the SEC are smart and they know verbiage. So we had to get someone who calls it different things. Just another little kind of micro deal that you take from media days. But I do think, Casey, the expectations right now are getting a little out of whack. Like, people forget that there were parts of this team that just flat out were pitiful last year. And like Dylan Wade, the tackle from Tulsa, I think he's a badass. Like, I think he's an SEC tackle right now. Avery Young, the kid that they got to play center from ECU, I think he's a really good football player. You go get Gunnar Britton from Western Kentucky. He can play guard or tackle. I think he's going to be solid. Xavier Miller, JUCO tackle, probably not ready yet. But, I mean, the offensive line was atrocious, miserable the last few years. You can imagine somebody like me having to watch it. It's just been bad. They've upgraded the talent almost across the board. So that should be better. Jake Thorne's a good offensive line coach, but we haven't seen it. Ronaldo Fairweather, the FIU tight end, super athletic, can go in the slot, can win one-on-ones, but we hadn't seen him operating this offense. I think Peyton Thorne is a hell of a quarterback. I mean, you don't get voted captain 2 years in a row at Michigan State and do the things that he did, have the success he did. I know last year was a little rocky, but so was the protection. I mean, if you want to get mad at the kid, actually dive into the tape and see why things were going poorly at certain times. but he's not super, like he's not Levis or Richardson or, Joe Milton. But if you talk about playing quarterback, like he can play quarterback. He's not afraid of the check down. He levels the ball well. He has enough arm strength to push it downfield. And then the receivers, like what's Auburn going to get? I think you went out and got a couple of really good receivers. The kid they got from North Texas can get like 6'2", can run past DBs, good catch radius. So, you get hooks from Jackson State. I don't know if that transfers in and like it's really good, but like Justin Rogers up front on defense, he can play. You get a linebacker from Ole Miss that can play. So I would expect it to be more competitive. I would expect more. I think they should win 7, and I think 8 would be a phenomenal year with that against that schedule. Now, because see, here's the thing: he's cleared the first hurdle by a mile, and that was put a staff together, upgrade talent. He's got a good staff. The talent's been upgraded. Now you have to organize it, you have to instruct it, educate it, and then when you start playing, you have to motivate it. Those are much more difficult. Then you have to game plan as you move on. So he's got some big hurdles in front of him, but get excited, man. Auburn fans haven't had anything to be super excited about for a while. Like, yeah, Tank Bigsby, but he was like the last in the nation in yards before contact last year. So he was incredible, but on his own. So I just think it's easy for Auburn fans to look at this like, let's sell the tickets out. You got a coach that's won in the league, that's generating excitement. Here's the number one thing with Auburn right now, outside of all of that. There is more alignment at the top than there's ever been in my lifetime.
And that
includes administration, boosters, collective, fans, employee, like all of it. So, and as we know right now in today's college football, it's pretty important.
And that's one of the biggest, and obviously it's changed a lot because of the NIL aspect and whatnot, transfer portal, everything. Lane Kiffin talked about it during media days. I thought he was complaining a little bit much for a guy who calls himself the transfer portal king, but whatever. He's Lane. I like, we are more pro Lane guys, but I remember before all of this, the culture that was talked about most and the people that would butt heads the most from an administration perspective, at least from since when I've really taken college football seriously, covering and whatnot, since I was probably, like 18 or so. So it's been close to a decade. Auburn's at the top of that list. You always hear about it. And then you hear more. Barstool's funny enough, one of our top social guys he's from Birmingham and he's an Alabama grad, but he is surrounded by Auburn. He knows everything about it. And obviously everyone has stories. Everyone knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody.
Everyone knows Cam Newton somehow.
Yeah.
Right?
That's SEC football. But it seems as if Auburn always has something not wrong, because maybe it's just more reported on, but hearing that it's a well-oiled machine right now gives me hope for the future of the culture, at least, because I know it's really hard to balance those things, and those are things fans forget about. They're like, the coach sucks. Well, no, the coach sucks because the administration won't back him, and then the players hate him because the coach can't do what the players want him to do for him, and it keeps going on and on and on.
Well, it's a power struggle, right,
Yeah.
Cole? That's so, you look at the fact, and again, Hugh Freeze has all the baggage tied to him, and whether, you buy into it or not, he, again, is a good coach. But just last year, we saw it at Auburn with Brian Harsin. And we saw, some people wanted him out. Then the rumors start coming out. And then the fans are mad. And then, it seems like at Auburn, Jack's right. It happens absolutely everywhere. But at Auburn, in the last decade or so, there always seems to be a power struggle. And there always seems to be somebody who wants the head coach out, but the head coach doesn't deserve it. And Brian Harsin is a prime example of what happened last year.
No, and I took heat from Auburn media, like Auburn beat writers, for defending Brian Harsin as a coach. Now, I think there were some things probably in recruiting he could have done different. I think there were some networking things, whether it be administration, boosters, recruiting, that he could have done different. There's no doubt. He would tell you that if he was sitting here right now. But he didn't become a shitty head football coach overnight. Like, that didn't just happen.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't take place. So I think when you think about how it's been, and there are certain people, when I say that, they kind of push back and they're like, oh, think about Tuberville. I'm like, bro, they got on a plane and went to Louisville to try to hire another head coach when he was the sitting coach. Yeah. Like Gene Chizik got fired 2 years after winning a national title. Like, well, Terry had a nice run. I was like, I'll tell you guys a story. We leave the team. We met at Sewell Hall on Fridays, early in the day. We get on the buses. We would go to Opelika, Alabama, and we go to a movie theater there. And then we would get back on the buses and go to LaGrange, Georgia, to spend the night before games. We go to Opelika, watch the movie. Thin Red Line was the movie. I still remember it. It was not a good movie. We get on the buses, and this is when not many people had cell phones. Like one of those guys had that brick Nokia that you could play Snake on.
Hell yeah.
And he gets on the bus. And he's like, he was our long snapper. Brent Turner was his name. He goes, "Hey, somebody's called in Feinbaum and said Terry got fired." And we're like, "I'm sorry, what?" He said, "Feinbaum saying Terry got fired." He's on the phone with his mom right then. So nobody says anything. No, we don't know if we trust it or not. The buses get back on the interstate towards Auburn. And we're like, okay, hold on a second. Like, the bus driver's not going to tell us anything. He's just going where they told him to go. He doesn't know what's going on. So we pull up to Sewell Hall, and the assistants are like, "Hey, we're going to go in the Sewell Hall. Like, we're trying to figure things out. We don't really know." We all go into our dining hall, which is upstairs at our dormitory. We all sit down. We wait for like 10, 15 minutes. Finally, Terry comes in. He says, "Guys, unfortunately, they're not going to allow me to coach here anymore. I'm not your head coach. I apologize." And that's it. He walked out. Bill Oliver was our interim head football coach. Less than 24 hours before a game that we played, and we won. So, I mean, the power struggle is real and has been very real. And I think a lot of that is because there have been between 1 and 3 individuals who have been behind it. And that's kind of the part that frustrates me a little bit. And I know we could find other places that have similar people or things that take place. But a lot of these Auburn fans get mad because Booster A or Booster B wants his way. And he wants this, he wants that. And I don't know, maybe later in life as I just get older and I have kids, or, you know, we just learn things about life. But a couple of years ago, it kind of hit me, and I'm like, well, wait a second. We've been taking this dude's money, gobs of money, by the way, for a long time. What part of us did not think that at some point in time he was going to want to call some shots?
Yeah,
I mean, I liken it to the super rich guy who puts the Instagram model on his private jet. They go to Vegas, like they go to Light in the Bellagio, they get bottle service, they go get a steak, and then he's like, "Okay, suites upstairs," and she's like, "No, like we're hitting the jet and we're going back." It's like, it doesn't always work that way. Like, this guy gives. What's he going to want? Like, he's going to want something in return, and that is power within the athletics department. So I don't know who is responsible, how it all should have worked out, but people have allowed that power to be disconnected for such a long time of, okay, we can allow you to see. I'll also ask the question, like, what do they want? Like, I understand if you want your name on a building. Like, the Neville family gave $100 million. They got their name on the basketball arena. Like, that's badass. Like, that, I'll never have a name on a building. If you want to have like the engineering building, I get it. But these other guys who are like just handing over these giant checks, like, do you want to call plays? Like, do you want
some of them do.
Yeah,
some of them do.
Of course. Like, do you want brunch with the coach on Sunday? Like,
yes.
Like, do you want a locker? Do you want a locker in the locker room next to the guys? Like, and that's where I think John Cohen's doing a nice job. But the AD's got to come in there and say, okay, listen, we're going to give you a headset in your suite during the game, but it's not going to work both ways. You can listen. Nobody else in here listen to what the coaches are saying. You get to hear it. It's like when you go to a NASCAR race, like you get to listen to your favorite pit crew. Like, you can listen. And you know what? We'll give you a microphone. You can pretend like it works. And you can tell them what plays you're calling, but you can't do it. Or, you know what? We can't give you a locker in the locker room, but we're going to put an exact replica at your office. And we're going to have every color uniform, practice jerseys, practice pad. You can get dressed every morning and run middle drill in your office. We don't care. Whatever they want, you got to make it work. Like, if they want brunch with the coach on Sunday, all right, I can do 3 Sundays this fall, but I can't do every Sunday. Like, that's not real. That's not possible. So I think for a long time, there was no meeting in the middle at Auburn, which I think is our biggest problem in college football right now. Like, no one wants to meet in the middle with anything. And I think now this is the coach that those guys wanted for the most part. And the AD wanted, and a lot of the boosters and a lot of the fans wanted. So because of that, there is real alignment right now.
All right, Jack, you know what I wish I had right now while I was listening to this interview?
I know what it is, and I want it to.
Just a nice hot meal.
Yes.
You know, kick your feet back. have a meal, listen to some college football, listen to Cole spitting the facts.
And I need a wholesome meal right now.
And you need it to be convenient because you don't want to go through too
I'm
much.
not looking to go home and cook something that takes 55 minutes.
We need a Factor. We just need a meal from Factor right now.
Factor.
Oh my God. I pay for Factor. I've said that on this podcast once. I'll say it a million times. Factor is awesome. Today I had their pimento cheese chicken with broccoli. They have a ton of different options on their app. The best thing is it comes to you. It's never frozen. It comes to you straight to your door. It's refrigerated, and it takes only 2 minutes to cook. The meals are ready in just 2 minutes. All you have to do is heat and enjoy them. And Jack, they're great for so many different reasons. Most of all, the convenience, the deliciousness, it's wholesome, but just they're not random ingredients. They're cooked by a chef every single week and then delivered to you, and damn, they are delicious.
No, they're delicious. And also, if you are with Factor, you are being guaranteed that you're making a sustainable choice. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices, and feature sustainability source seafood in our meals. So if that's something that's important, yeah. So and I know that's a thing that's a huge factor in a lot of people's decisions.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. And this July, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle.
That's another huge thing. You don't have to cook, prep, clean up. It comes in just one little tray. You pop it open, you put it in the microwave, you eat it, you throw it away. It is great. Head to factormeals.com/Walker50 and use the code Walker50 to get 50% off. That's code Walker50 at factormeals.com/Walker50 to get 50% off. I can't state this enough. They are absolutely unreal delicious. You can pick from a meal or pick from a menu every single week, and they are nutritious and ready to eat. Go to factormeals.com/Walker50. And just to put you on the spot a little bit is, all the stuff that happened with Hugh Freeze. So let's, retroactively look back to when he got fired from Ole Miss, all the stuff that came out. Again, we don't have to go through his rap sheet, Brandon would, so I'd like it on record that I am classier than Brandon. But just to go through that, and then looking back now, Auburn fans probably made fun of what happened at Ole Miss. Auburn fans probably said, ha, look at Hugh Freeze. Look at the mess that Ole Miss has done. This is a God-fearing guy. Look at what he's done. And then now he is a great football coach. Auburn fans are super excited. But didn't there have to be a little bit of talking the whole fan base's brains into it, saying, we made fun of him a whole lot there, but hey, we'll take him as our football coach. That is a fact, right?
I mean, I think anybody has to have some concern, Casey, and anybody looks back at it and says, are we just going to overlook all of that? But I, for one, personally, am the last one who can do that. You can go find my public DUI and you can search that, and the Huntsville News, for some reason on Sunday night was still running that 72 hours later. It was on every damn message board in the state of Alabama. So I'm the last one that should sit there and say, I don't deserve a second chance, or somebody else doesn't deserve a second chance, or this guy screwed up, so don't let him go again. And I get it. And some of it was egregious. Some of it was really stupid. Now, the player stuff and all that, I think we've all kind of moved past that. And whether it's, I don't care who, Reggie Bush or with any of that kind of stuff, we've all just said, whatever, it's allowed now, so it's no big deal. But I think it comes down to decision-making and personal decision-making. And I do think there are a lot of aspects of his life that he is different. But time will tell if he really is or not. Because if he has success, he's going to have opportunities to make mistakes. We know that. And he's going to be on the pedestal where people want to find him making those mistakes. So part of what you said was a real concern for me, but it was, we've seen him clap back on social media before. Mm-hmm. And my opinion is a head coach can't do that. You have to show more mental and emotional toughness than that. You are the head coach of a Southeastern Conference school. You can't do that.
Yeah.
And when he took this job, let's think about just the natural born enemies. Alabama, don't have to explain it. Georgia, don't have to explain it. Ole Miss, should be pretty clear. AD that fired him, currently employed at Texas A&M. That'd probably be another one. Mississippi State, doesn't have to explain it. He was the head coach at Ole Miss. That's half the league I basically just named of fan bases who are going to come after you every single day for no reason.
Right.
Other than they know it's going to bother you. So, but I think it's something that he knows, and he talks to people about it, and he's got people that help him with it, and he knows he can't do it. So there were obvious concerns with a lot of the fan base. But I would be the last one to sit here and say a guy who screwed up at one point in his life or multiple times in his life shouldn't get another shot.
Yeah, look no further than the guy that usually sits in this seat. That guy will have a microscope on Auburn all season.
I mean, yeah, he's just because he's already has a rivalry with Auburn. I mean, I would say Brandon's number one rivalry right now, obviously Ole Miss, but that's aside. Arkansas, it's always coming up. Mm-hmm. But Auburn, it's just Auburn fans have always. I remember when he first started here, Auburn fans were already.
Yeah, you guys get at him. So that's an interesting question too, Cole. So as somebody who works on the sidelines, you're obviously very busy during the game. You're doing some things that are very important, but you are able to look at social media a little bit. But of all the SEC or any fan base in the country, but obviously working for the SEC Network and ESPN, you get most of that. Which fan base do you find is the meanest to you on Twitter after games? Is there a fan base that just really sticks out to you?
And sensitive.
Casey, this is such bullshit because you know what you're doing to me right now. If I answer this question,
hey, Noah, get ready to clip this. Get ready to clip this.
No, I'm just curious. Clip. Cole, you're a national guy. You know all these fan bases. You're very, very active on social media. Who do you hate the most?
We got Dogwire's actually listening in, so they're getting ready to write this.
I'll just say this. We tried something a little bit different for the Ole Miss Arkansas game last year. All three of us were on the field. I believe Arkansas put up 700 plus yards of offense in that game.
Yep.
There was a conversation about one of the head coaches potentially ending up at another Southeastern Conference school. Mm-hmm. So a lot of worlds collided on one night. And it was not probably the best night for us to try to get cute on the sidelines and do something different, which we did. And if you didn't like that, that's fine. It probably will never happen again. Once again, we tried something different, and not a lot of people enjoyed it. Matter of fact, some Arkansas fans said they really liked it. However,
well, they had 700 yards.
The things that I was accused of saying in that game that did not come out of my mouth, still to this day, I still get tweets about it, it's unbelievable. And I know everything that was happening, but I'm not going to say anything about any certain fan bases, but I will just say after that game, by far has been the most negativity that has been tossed my way of any other game I've ever done.
I have to admit, I remember that specifically because I follow all three of you guys on Twitter, you, Jordan, and Tom, and I remember seeing that and also watching that game. And of course, as you know, you guys are the ones that made that call 100%. There was nobody behind the scenes. It was the three of you guys decided to do that all on your own, as everybody does. But I do remember that, so we don't have to hold those fan bases accountable. Then on the opposite side, obviously Auburn fans for you are going to be, the best because that's your school, your alma mater, your team. Outside of Auburn, who do you find is the best Twitter fan base to interact with? There's a couple at the top. We'll take Auburn fans out of it, which actually it might not be there because I used to tell people all the time I got more Auburn fans that hate me than I do any other school in the league. Because A&M fans get mad at me all the time too. It's true.
If I say anything that I think is real, my opinion, that's not 1,000%, rah sunshine and rainbows, then of course I hate Auburn. A&M fans are fantastic. Kentucky fans are fantastic, and I'm going to throw this out there, and I'm just. Take it for what you will. I've done radio in Huntsville and Birmingham now off and on since 2010. There's probably like 2 years off in there. And Alabama fans are really good to me. That's all I'm going to say. Which is 98% of them. Now, we've done 4 Alabama games the last 2 years. And I do radio in Birmingham now with Greg McElroy, who won a national championship at Alabama.
Helps.
But it was a rocky start. I will not deny that. But Alabama fans have welcomed me in with open arms. When I go to Tuscaloosa, they're awesome. Wherever I go to eat, they're so nice. I go around. The most common phrase I get in Birmingham is, "I know you're an Auburn guy, but."
Yep.
It's it can't be, "I like your show. Good job on the call last night. I know you're an Auburn guy, but I like your show."
Well, that probably has a lot to do with what you just said as well, is that, you do tell the truth about Auburn because, you see that a lot, regardless of whoever the analyst, the podcaster, the radio host, whoever it is, if you can talk about your team in a negative way, the rivals are then going to accept you. Even if what you're saying isn't true, they're like, oh, well, Cole can talk shit about his own team. He can be one of us. As far as, moving forward, and I know we could keep you forever because we're all ready for college football, but moving forward, the SEC is changing a lot. As I mentioned, and as we all know, Oklahoma and Texas coming in is huge. It's huge for so many different reasons. We've asked all of our guests this. Of the two, of Oklahoma and Texas, who do you think has the most immediate success once they come into the SEC? The quickest.
Texas, easy.
Oklahoma.
Kyle Flood and Steve Sarkisian they've already begun to place a massive emphasis at the line of scrimmage. It's how they're recruiting. They know that it has to be better there. They know that they can't win unless they address that. And I mean, listen, I'll tell you, I think Texas is going to be – this is one thing that bothers me about being a member of the college football media. Like, I can't sit here and tell you guys right now that I think Texas is going to be good because everybody's going to say, Mom, he thinks Texas is back. He said national tie. I heard him. He said Texas is back. Hey, that's son of a gun. And it's like, no, they got dudes, man. Like, they're going to be a good football team. I think they have a talented quarterback, a really good tight end, great group of receivers. The offensive line's all back. They got a first-round pick at left tackle. Defense outside of linebacker and 2 D linemen might not be great, but I think they're going to be a really good football team. And I think Sark's a good coach. I think Oklahoma has pieces of being dangerous in the SEC right now, but after what I saw defensively last year, it's going to be hard for me to sit there and say, yeah, I think they're going to come in and just all of a sudden be dominant or competitive week in, week out. I will say this. I think they're both phenomenal fits. I think the culture, the fan bases, the history, the tradition, there are not a lot of other non-SEC schools that would come in that would be as good or better fits than those two schools. I've never done a game in Norman, never done a game in Austin. I'm excited about going to both. I got friends that play to both. So I think it's amazing for the league. It did bring up a minute ago when you talked about Brandon and Auburn and how he hates Arkansas and he hates Ole Miss and he hates Auburn. I will miss that because I think sometimes in college football, we get caught up when we say rivalry, we get caught up Texas A&M, Auburn, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Army, Navy. And we kind of let that go. But we forget sometimes that Auburn and LSU are still rivals. Mississippi State and Arkansas are still rivals. That's all those, you play those teams every year. There's a familiarity with what you're going to get, what it's going to be like, and what to expect. And whether you stomped them the year before and you want to do it again and you're feeling good about it, or you lose to them that year and you got a chance to get them back the next year. Think about all the history of when Auburn's going to play Arkansas. I remember double duty Davenport playing tight end. He caught 4 passes for 182 and 3 of them were touchdowns against us. He murdered us. And then there was a running back named Fred at 11 or 11:30 every year for a 7-year stretch that ran for 200 on Auburn. Fred Smith, Fred Talley, Fred, whatever, you name it, fill in the blank, Fred something, ran for 200 on Auburn every year in an early kick. It just happened. You remember what Darren McFadden did. You remember what Matt Jones did. You remember what your guys did too. I'll always remember playing against, going to Athens and playing against Richard Stroud or Marcus Stroud and Richard Seymour and Kendrell Bell and Champ Bailey. You get that every year. So that kind of going away, I do think we're going to miss a little bit because I do think there are still rivalries that aren't the epitome of rivalry games that we talk about. And that familiarity being gone, I'm a little bummed about it because when I didn't see Auburn LSU on the schedule, I was like, man, no Alabama, Mississippi State. I know State hadn't won since 07, but that just feels like a physical game that's 40 minutes away from each other. It should just happen. We play an Alabama, Mississippi high school all-star game here every year. That's the all-star teams from both states go play. You feel like those teams should play every year.
Alabama and Mississippi State are the 2 closest SEC schools, or at least by stadium. In
right.
The entire SEC, and they're not going to play. It stinks. That's what I kind of think about, not to open it up to the college football playoff debate, but we look at college as college football fans as definites. It's this is going to work, this is amazing, or this is going to stink. It's Brandon thinks the college football playoff in KC2 is expansion is amazing. Mm-hmm. Josh Pate thinks it's the worst idea ever, and I'm not saying that's what makes it great for college football fans because we debate, but there's a possibility both things are good. And there's also some really downsides to it. And conference expansion is great. Texas coming to the SEC is amazing. UCLA and USC going to the Big Ten, I think, will probably be an overall good. But regionality in college football is dead. I mean, it's not dead, but like, and I say that as a guy who, like, I grew up in Connecticut. How I fell in love with college football was UConn football and the Big East football, which is probably foreign to a lot of people that are even listening to this. But when I see a highlight from a 2007 Sports Center of South Florida against UConn, South Florida against Louisville, and as I'm saying this, that's a South Florida to Kentucky. That's a far away. But like, I look at those and I think, man, it would just be great if we could just say, all right, stop. Let's have 4 things in 4 different, like,
north, south, east, and west.
Yeah, and then we roll with that. But you know, I still love it. But like, and I look at those games and I get nostalgia. Is that
Nostalgia.
Nostalgia.
You had it.
And that's because, I mean, I was a kid, everything was great, but
you know,
And
what you just proved is something that I bring up a lot, and that is when certain things like that you love, college football, for example, or if you're an NBA fan or Major League Baseball, whatever, you guys love college football like I do. When it was most impressionable to you, is always going to be the best that it was. Mm-hmm. Like, I had this guy, he writes for a school that covers the Pac-12, and he called me the other day. He goes, "Hey, I'm doing an article. I'm not going to put your name in it, but if you are like an alien ship that came down and your job was to reformat college football, which teams from the current Big Ten would you keep and which would you exclude?" And I didn't have UCLA and USC. And he was like, "Oh, wow, like you're the only one that said that." And I said, "Well, yeah, everybody else is thinking about like probably business and which is going to make the most money and which are the bigger brands. I want to go back to what I first fell in love with college football." So I'm sitting there after the Pac-10 and like, I'm going to reformat it the way it was when I fell in love with it. So it's never going to be better than what you just brought up, because that's what you know college football as. And even though it changes, like I just said about divisions, I will always love knowing what other teams Auburn was going to play every year because they were in our division. And you get a cross rival, okay, and that's great. But like, I think that helps build it up over time. And also, like you stated, it might be better going forward. I don't know. It might be worse. If there's one thing we've learned with the leaders, so to speak, of college football, we definitely don't think about our consequences before we make big decisions.
That is a fact. And sometimes I don't think they think at all. We've seen that plenty of times. You know, there's not much going on at all. And you're 100% right. I mean, it's like, as much as I love A&M playing LSU because it's awesome for TV and it's awesome for bragging rights and whatever else, it's not the same as Thanksgiving was when I was a kid. It's having to fake the heated rivalry that doesn't exist. Before we let you go, I have to know, so from, a college football playoff standpoint, like Jack said, we don't have to open up the whole can of worms. I am very pro expansion, but right now it is still the 4 teams. We're looking to see what that's going to look like. You mentioned earlier when we talked about Georgia that you do have some question marks. I think most people solidly have them in as one of those 4 teams in 2023. Do you have Georgia there? And if not, who from the SEC, and then who are your 4 teams that you think will end up there come January?
No, Georgia would definitely be one of my teams in. And I think the field, see, people get this twisted. The field of teams who can win the playoff this year is super, super, super small, like really small. Now, get to the playoff, totally different discussion. I think the winner of the West is also probably going to be in, depending on kind of how it shakes out and where it goes. If I had to go like the rest of the way through, I would probably take Michigan again. I'm a little bit down on Ohio State this year. And yes, the Ohio State fans have already told me that I'm a lunatic and don't know what I'm talking about. But it's amazing how Bama needs a new quarterback and the wheels are falling off. But certain other teams get a new quarterback and it's like, let's move on. Nothing's going to change. It's all good. No, it's no big deal. I love Florida State. I just don't know if they can make the playoff. Like, I think the ACC is taking a step back this year. I think Drake May is going to be great, but I don't know if that defense is going to improve a whole lot. I'm interested to see kind of what happens at NC State. Like, you kind of swap quarterbacks, and is it going to be as good as it's been? Like, I think Clemson is not going to be the Clemson. I'm not saying they fall to like 6 or 7 wins, but I don't think they're going to be viewed as dominant by the national media, and that's going to hurt sort of the perspective of the ACC. I kind of hope a team from the Pac-12 gets in because I'm excited to watch the Pac-12 this year. Like, I love Washington. the problem is when you have that many good quarterbacks, you're going to get upsets. You just are. And it's literally every team. Like, people don't even know about Jaden DeLaura. Like, every team in the league seemingly has a badass quarterback, or like even with Uiagalelei, who he might not have to be good because that's a team that came back from 14 points, running the ball like 38 straight times. Like, Oregon State wants to mash you. So you've got a good quarterback in almost every team out there, a lot of elite quarterbacks. I find it very difficult that even a Utah, USC, or a Washington are not going to slip up somewhere, or an Oregon's not going to slip up somewhere because a quarterback play is going to be so good. So I think there's only like 5 to 7 teams that can win a national title this year. And probably another reason why I think 2 from the SEC probably get in.
You're an SEC homer. That's why you think that, Cole. Don't you know? You've
course.
got the bias. That's exactly what it is. Jack, you got anything else?
No, thank you for your time. I always come out of these interviews really excited for the season.
I know it.
Just you bringing up, I mean, obviously I knew we were going to get in the SEC, but just the thought of Oregon State and USC playing, I don't know if that's actually on the schedule. It should be, though. It definitely is. USC or late night Washington games, like, those things are getting me feeling really good. Even just like a random Arkansas Ole Miss game, even though it's not random, because as you said, that was
people get mad about that game.
Your massive moment last year, which I didn't even realize in the moment that they were coming at you. But
I did. I saw it happening. I was like, oh boy, these guys.
Those defining games sometimes. Dan Orlovsky had it one time against you guys when you guys, the COVID year 2020.
Oh no.
He was bringing up, I think, how like he doesn't think Texas A&M should be in the playoff, and I remember the Twitter, and that was when there wasn't as many games on, so everyone was watching, and people went at, and obviously being the UConn guy that I am, I defended Dan Orlovsky, but
to the death.
To the death, but. No, thank you so much for your
Cole,
time.
you guys are great. Do you have any embarrassing stories about Tom Hart before you go? Because we all know that guy is an embarrassment of a human being.
I don't stand by that.
What stories are not embarrassing that have to do with Tom Hart? Would be the better question. Yeah, you should ask him about his Christmas present from KP. I think he'll be excited to tell you about that.
Okay, I will. So yeah, I mean, Cole.
Quickly, I will tell you this, Casey. The photograph that you were going to mention with Josh Pate from Media Days.
Yes.
So that interview is actually caught up in legal right now, and we cannot release it on my podcast channel, Cube Show 61 on YouTube, by the way.
Cube Show 61.
So yeah, we're trying to work through that. I don't know if it's going to get out there, but
did you do something wrong?
We'll link all your stuffs in the bio. So Cole, and your Twitter, obviously, and whatnot. Those, but definitely your YouTube. So
is it only on YouTube, or because we're audio?
Oh no, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
everywhere.
Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I suck at YouTube, so I'm trying to get some traffic over there.
We'll shout out. We stink at YouTube too, but we'll shout you out.
Yeah, we'll shout. See that I always say that a lot of podcasts are like YouTube first, and then listeners. Like ours is the opposite. Ours is like people are listening, and then they flock to Twitter. But then we also have a YouTube, so we all suck at YouTube here, and we're trying to get better.
I actually think our YouTube is pretty good, but
we're getting better.
We're getting better.
We're getting better.
Well, so one more thing. Do you really have 500,000 followers on TikTok?
Yeah, I'm almost at 600 now.
Yeah,
I'm getting close. Yesterday I had a big video.
Cole, I cannot make this up. We make the joke all the time, but in our meetings, like in our all hands meetings where, every single important person is there, no fail, every single time, they're like, hey, everybody, you've got to get better at TikTok, because if Jack Mack can do it, anybody can do it. I mean, that's verbatim. I don't know how many times Dave has said it, but he'll just be like, I mean, Jack Mack, that guy can do it, because he's just thriving. Like, he's the best.
What is the handle? I'm going to go follow right now.
Jack Mack Barstool. So
JACKMAC.
No K at the end. Of MAC.
What's your gimmick? Is it like college football?
So after I just dance. No, my gimmick is just breaking down stories, essentially.
So Cole, this is what he does better than anybody I know, and I don't just say that because he and I are good friends.
Kind.
But it's true. So like when something breaking happens, and we all run to Twitter, and you'll tweet about it, or you'll text somebody about it. Jack can go to TikTok, do the green screen element, and immediately rattle off a take to it, and it's up before you can even pull your Twitter app up.
See, I don't even know how to do that. Like put the thing
behind
old.
It's because we're old. That's why.
So I guess if there was any gimmick, quote unquote, it'd be green screen.
It's the green screen.
And it's really cool because you can go on Twitter, get photos and whatnot, and just take the screenshot, and then my face is in front of it, So it's
and he's talking, and he's giving an opinion on what we're all talking about. It's just up faster than we can even blink. If you ever have questions, you should absolutely talk to him about it, because I would assume that when you're on the road, especially, behind the scenes, not just with like the fun stuff that you, Tom and Jordan and everybody else does, but just like the information that you get that you are allowed to share, if you were able to just stick that up on TikTok right away, like that's the stuff that, and Jack's very like complimentary of other people, because TikTok loves that stuff. Like if you can just be like, oh, I just left a meeting with Lane Kiffin and, expect to see XYZ or whatever you can share, that stuff would pop off, I'd assume.
I mean, TikTok loves experiences, and you being on the sideline of a college, like I bet you probably even think of TikTok like, oh, there's no college football fan. No, there's like a lot,
and they get mad on
and then
there.
There's a lot of kids that are in college and whatnot too that are on it, and there's a lot of older people as well. But like you on the sideline, like man, like there's like that's just endless. You approach Twitter amazing. It's just taking the cool stuff from Twitter, putting it on TikTok. But I get it. Especially people are really busy, especially you. You're on the sidelines. You're not thinking about TikTok. You're thinking about football, and so it's cool. I figured it out.
He's the best at it.
But
yeah,
a lot of people can. It's not like an unbreakable thing.
Well, definitely. If you have any questions, ask him. And then obviously the crew is back together, right? This year it's you, Tom, and Jordan on the call. As fingers crossed.
Hope so.
We'll
Hope
see.
So
On the SEC network, and then obviously, you have a podcast, radio show. You're with Greg McElroy, Sirius XM, all over ESPN, all over the SEC network. You can find Cole anywhere. We'll have to have you back on the show as well when Brandon's here, because I'm sure he will have lovely things to say about Auburn and Hugh Freeze.
Oh, 100%.
100%. So thank you so much for coming on.
I appreciate you guys having me. It's been fun. I've been wanting to come on for a while, so thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Cole.